welcome into a special edition of MOTV Forecast. We are tracking Major Hurricane Laura, which is a very strong Category 4 hurricane that is bearing down on the western Louisiana coast right now, and we are expecting really catastrophic impacts. There will be homes that will be completely wiped out of off their foundations. There will be coastal towns that will be unrecognizable when this storm is over. We are dealing with one of the strongest hurricanes we've seen in the past couple of years, and the strongest that western Louisiana coast has ever seen, in fact. So let's start off by taking a look at Laura and the statistics as of the latest 11 p.m. advisory. Here we can see, wow, just look at that satellite presentation. It's just, you know, a buzzsaw kind of storm. It's a textbook hurricane, and it's almost humbling just to look at it on satellite presentation. But we can see, as of the latest statistics, it's a 150 mile per hour Category 4 hurricane bearing down on parts of western Louisiana. This is going to include places including Lake Charles, Louisiana, and unfortunately we're going to be dealing with catastrophic damage in some areas. The pressure is down to 939 millibars, indicating a very strong hurricane. And the one thing that could be good news for portions of Louisiana and eastern Texas is the fact that it is moving quickly. So it's not going to be a heavy rain event. It's not going to be like a Harvey that we had 3 years ago in Texas. So luckily it's moving fast, but that also means places more inland need to be prepared for stronger winds, as if it's moving faster, it's going to travel more before it weakens. So a lot to talk about here, and let's now get into a little bit more with Laura here. And we can see this is a look at its history. Let's take a look at its track history before we really get into anything. It's been in a system since August 19th here out into the tropical Atlantic, and it's made its way all the way into the Gulf Coast, and over the past 24 hours it has rapidly intensified into a very powerful, strong Category 4 hurricane. And once again, the intensity is outdoing the forecasts. Rapid intensification is something that really needs to be worked on in accuracy, because we haven't really seen accuracy in predicting these rapid intensification events, especially in the recent years where they have become more common, in the likes of Michael and Harvey that we have seen only in the past couple of years. So definitely something we really need to focus more efforts on. But if we take a look at its radar right now, we can see this also shows some winds. Winds are beginning to gust in tropical storm force strength along portions of coastal Louisiana. There in Lake Charles, looking at gusts up to 45 miles per hour. And if we take a look, we're not too far from landfall. We should have another about 4 hours to go, maybe even 3 hours to go before we start seeing the center move ashore. And we can also see some tornado warnings. There's a tornadic threat with this storm. We've seen quite a few rain-wrapped tornadoes move along portions of coastal Louisiana. Now, a lot of these areas are going to be underwater fairly shortly as the storm moves ashore. And storms are just something we really need to talk about. We're going to get into that. We have a tornado watch up until, I'm not exactly sure because it has been extended, but we do have pretty much for the duration of its landfall, we do have a tornado threat. Now, Hurricane Laura's alerts, we have hurricane warnings extending all the way from Galveston over towards Lafayette, and they go as far inland as just south of Shreveport, Louisiana. So expect hurricane conditions pretty much all the way up the Texas-Louisiana border. And the severe weather forecast, we're talking about those tornadoes, that tornadic threat. Expect that to be greatest in this northeast quadrant, or the upper right quadrant of the storm in the direction of its landfall, and that's going to include places like Alexandria, Lafayette, Lake Charles, getting in on the worst of the severe weather in terms of tornadoes. But with the center of this storm moving through some of these areas, that's going to be equivalent to the likes of some tornado damage. So, I mean, we have a tornado threat, but the inner core of this storm is basically one big, long-lasting, large tornado. It's what I like to look at it as, because it provides the same threats. And if we take a look into tomorrow night, we still have the severe weather threat. Some of this is going to be extending farther north towards areas like Jackson, Mississippi, and Little Rock, Arkansas. So expect the severe weather threat to continue even after landfall with this storm. And tropical storm force wind probabilities, almost certain for much of the state of Louisiana. We can see from Lake Charles to Shreveport expecting almost 100%. We're at 90% chance for those tropical storm force winds. Out in Houston, you're more about your 50-50 shot at seeing it. Now, how strong are these wind gusts going to be, and when are they going to occur? We can see places like Cameron, Louisiana, just right on the coast there in Louisiana, could get a landfall very close nearby as well. This is one area where communities could pretty much be leveled because of the storm surge. We're not talking about your average hurricane. We're talking about a very significant, very strong one, where even homes that are on stilts, on wooden stilts that are raised to prepare for storm surge, this storm surge is expected to be so catastrophic that even those stilts holding the homes above the water may not be enough to keep these homes from being completely washed away. And that's our fear. And especially in a place like Cameron, Louisiana, winds are already gusting to hurricane force, and they're going to continue throughout the night until we head to the early hours of tomorrow morning. Lake Charles, we're seeing that hurricane force winds, gusts, and they will be sustained well over 75 miles per hour here. That's well through tomorrow early morning. Now, Beaumont as well, seeing the worst of the conditions probably around the 1-2 a.m. time frame. Houston, we're going to see those gusts approach tropical storm force. Luckily, we're out of the worst of the impacts in Houston. Not expecting much except, some gusty winds, but nothing too significant from this storm. We really dodged a bullet in Houston because, let me tell you, if this center of circulation came over Houston, we'd be having a very big problem. Not to say we don't have a big problem already, especially with places that are going to experience the worst of the storm, but in terms of population density, we dodged a bullet with this one in Houston. Now, power outage potential here with Laura. We are expecting widespread power outages. To be expected. We have 150 mile per hour winds roaring ashore. We're going to be seeing widespread power outages along the Texas-Louisiana border all the way up into southern Arkansas, even likely that will be seeing power outages. And don't expect the power to come back quickly either. We're going to have a lot to clean up after this storm, and some places this storm is so bad, power is the least of some people's worries with this storm. And we do want to update you because of the threat of storm surge. I-10 has been closed around the Texas-Louisiana state line all the way around towards Lafayette. So we're seeing a pretty significant area of the I-10 closed down because the storm surge, if you see how far inland I-10 is here, the storm surge has the potential of moving 40 miles inland, and that would be enough to cover I-10. The ocean is expected to cover I-10 in some places, as the storm surge is expected to even make it to places like Lake Charles. And look at how far inland that is to the coast. The geographic marshes and different geographic features in portions of coastal Louisiana make it easier for that storm surge to travel farther. So that is what we are seeing. So no one's allowed on I-10 because this storm surge is expected to overcome it. And speaking of the storm surge, let's finally get into the storm surge forecast. Some places could be seeing, including Cameron, Louisiana, 15 to 20 feet of storm surge. And that's really why we're saying coastal communities like Cameron, where the center is expected to move ashore, should be prepared for the community to be leveled, to come back and the coastline be completely changed. This is the kind of intensity of a storm that will change the geography of a coastline. That's how powerful it is. Some places that are land now could be water tomorrow and stay that way because the storm is that powerful. Some places where it's water now will be sand and we'll have land. So not only are we talking about the potential of losing many homes in some coastal communities here, but we're also talking about the potential for reshaping the coastline with this kind of intensity storm. This part of Louisiana has, in historical records, never seen a hurricane this intense before. So it's definitely unprecedented and very serious what we are seeing here. Now, the rainfall forecast here, even though it's going to be a quick mover, we're going to be seeing this rain move inland, even dumping about 5 to 8 inches, even in portions of Arkansas like Little Rock. So even though it's a quick mover, we're going to be seeing even around Lake Charles in some places up to a foot of rainfall, and that is very significant. And even though it's moving quick, that means this rainfall is falling in a very short period of time. This is getting added onto the storm surge we are expecting to see. So very dangerous situations even with the rainfall. Really not good news. So let's now switch gears here a little bit. I do want to take a look at the radar of this storm. And if we can get it in motion here, that would be even better. But we have the track here as well. So we can see the outer bands of Hurricane Laura are starting to move onshore, starting to approach areas like Lake Charles. And Lake Charles is, as I said, look how far inland it is, but we're expecting the majority of the city to be underwater with the storm surge from this storm, because 15 to 20 feet of storm surge moving that far inland because of the geography will flood the majority of the city of Lake Charles. So we've seen a lot of evacuations, mandatory evacuations, even ordered inland in places like Lake Charles. And looking at the radar here, we are seeing, the heaviest and the worst of the storm is about, 1 to 2 hours away from, meeting the land there. Once we start seeing this inner eye wall cross onshore, that's when we're going to start to see the wind speeds sustained at major hurricane force, and especially the gusts of major hurricane force. It's pretty much right in this eye right here where we're seeing just outside of that calm center. That is where the strongest of the storm is, and that is where the worst of the weather is. And that is what we are eagerly awaiting and dreading, quite honestly, as we head into the overnight hours tonight. We're starting to go downhill there now, and we're going to continue to do so overnight. And there's a lot of portions of coastal Louisiana already underwater from this storm, and it's going to continue to get worse as the center of circulation moves through. And if we zoom out here and we take a look at the forecast projected path for Laura, let's just try to zoom out here because it's going to be moving inland places, and it's going to be maintaining some strength. We're expecting it to weaken to a tropical depression as we head into this upcoming weekend. But notice, once it goes post-tropical, we expect the possibility for this storm to merge with a front, and this storm is expected to move into the mid-Atlantic and off the mid-Atlantic coast, and potentially strengthen as a post-tropical cyclone off of the mid-Atlantic coast there. So we're going to see the remnants of this storm start to move in and affect places in the mid-Atlantic, in the Northeast. So keep this in the back of your minds. That's as we get more towards early next week time frame. Actually, this upcoming Saturday Saturday evening is when we expect it to emerge from the mid-Atlantic coast. So if you're in the mid-Atlantic Northeast, just keep an eye on this storm. It won't be tropical at that point, but it could still be bringing some gusty winds as the remnants of the storm. So essentially, we are talking about a very dangerous storm here. I'll be back for a regular episode of MOTV Forecast this Friday at 5 p.m. new time. So mark your calendars for new time at 5 p.m. this upcoming Friday. But I do want to leave you guys with one final look at this satellite presentation. And this is a storm that will definitely be going down in the history books. It's unprecedented in this part of the country. Western Louisiana has never seen a landfall this fall, or this strong. And a lot of comparisons are being made to Hurricane Rita from 2005. It was a 120 mile per hour Category 3 at landfall, and it did a lot of devastation to the same areas that Laura is devastating. Only this time, Laura has winds 30 miles per hour more than our previous worst case scenario for this part of the country. So we are talking about catastrophic damage. My fear is that there will be a couple coastal communities wiped off the map because of this storm. There may be some communities where nothing is left. And that is something that I think everyone needs to prepare for, and hopefully everybody that was in those areas was able to evacuate, because it'll be very difficult to survive this storm. National Weather Service is saying the storm surge will be unsurvivable along the coast where this storm is making landfall. And I mean, there's only so much you can do at this point. Just hope for the best, hope people took precautions and got out of there if they could. But we are definitely dealing with an unprecedented situation and a catastrophic situation this evening along the Louisiana coast. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys. Thank you so much for joining in. If you are anywhere in the vicinity of the storm, stay safe and continue to pay attention to those National Hurricane Center updates as they come, especially as the storm is about to make landfall. Signing off, it's Riley Winch.